Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 6:30.
It's 8:07, and man, even if some people feel like the field for 2012 is a little underwhelming, the news is not, because it just keeps coming. So this week, we've got Bill KRISTOL with us from the Weekly Standard, my former boss, and awesome.
Suck it up. Still, he's not your boss anymore.
Hey,
not to do that,
you know what? I never really leave anyone's employ. So we've got Bill KRISTOL with us to talk about it. Bill, are you there?
I'm here. I'm just enjoying all your, nice words. And Mary Catherine's still on a kind of severance deal with us. So
exactly.
What she says, the checks stop coming. If no, I'm just kidding. It was very nice of you to say that, and it's good to be with all of you.
Well, so this week we've got the Newt campaign pretty much imploding yesterday. He says he's still in it to win it. And then we've got the question of whether Rick Perry will jump in. You had news the other day about possibly Rudy Giuliani getting in. When is the field set for this thing?
I guess filing deadline for New Hampshire, I think, is around November 15th, and I don't know that it'll get set much before that. I mean, the Washington media, I'm sort of been amused by the last few days, sort of resent it when people think about getting in or getting out. It's sort of like they control the field, and you have to get a pass from them to enter the race. And if you don't sit down and have coffee with them ahead of time and explain your strategy and all that, then who are you to just jump in? But the fact is, Rudy Giuliani appears to think that he has a real chance and has something to say, and I'm told he intends to get in. He's making calls. His official statement is that they haven't decided yet. Rick Perry, I think, is now very likely to get in, especially with the implosion of the Gingrich campaign. And two of Gingrich's top staff were previously staff to Governor Perry, so they're going to go back to Rick Perry, and I think he will run. Whether Newt has to get out because of the loss of most of his staff is an interesting question. He'll certainly stay through the debate Monday night and try to shine there, and that's a good forum for him. When you think about Palin may or may not get in, didn't she say she was 50-50, I think, to Chris Wallace last Sunday? So think about it. Palin, Perry, Giuliani, Pataki, apparently, the former governor of New York, is thinking of getting in. I'm not sure how much difference that'll make, but he's running ads in New Hampshire. If you look for this not-for-profit group he has against the debt, and then of course there's Paul Ryan, Chris Christie out there. I'm told that John Thune, the senator from South Dakota, who was kind of a favorite of his Senate colleagues as a kind of establishment candidate who's also young and attractive, is also rethinking his early decision not to get in. So,
that's huge news.
Well, if it's huge news, but I think, everyone here wants, not everyone here, not us, but a lot of people here, they want the field to be set so they can, write their analysis pieces about Romney and Pawlenty and Michelle Bachmann and Herman Cain, and they get annoyed when people kind of decide to rethink, but there's a reason the filing deadline is not till November,
Okay, Rudy Giuliani's past performance in these efforts has been less than stellar. What does he think he can change things this time around?
I think he thinks he's learned from that. We'll see that he's going to go to New Hampshire and campaign hard. Obviously, almost every Republican nominee for the last 60 years is someone who's run before and presumably got to be a better candidate the second time. And I do think he just looks at the field and he thinks, I made mistakes both in my second term as mayor and as a candidate in 2008, but he did do a heck of a job in his first term as mayor. And if there's any guy who's associated with taking a real tough situation, in the case of Rudy, a city, New York, that was going off the cliff in terms of crime and other problems, and turning it around, it's got to be Rudy Giuliani. And here the nation is going off the cliff in terms of debt and deficit. And I think he's going to say, you know what, I'm a tough guy. I'll take on all the interest groups. You may not agree with me on everything, but I've shown I can govern. I don't think it's likely. He's got just so much baggage and too many problems for Republican primary voters, and I do think people want a fresh face. But, I can sort of see he's a good debater. I can sort of see that catching on a little bit.
You got any insights on what happened with Newt? I mean, why did everybody leave?
Well, Fred Barnes, my colleague, wrote a piece late yesterday on the Standard blog. He did some reporting, a lot of complaints about Mrs. Gingrich, honestly, that she was very involved in the campaign, and she didn't want Newt to campaign too hard. The precipitating thing was she insisted he go on, or insisted isn't quite right. She persuaded him, I guess, or to go on. He chose to go on an almost 2-week cruise in the Greek islands, which he's just back from. Kind of a strange time to take 10, 12 days off a campaign when things are heating up. I think he's had trouble raising money. He raised a lot of money for his not-for-profit groups, but that you can do in big chunks. Presidential campaigns is $2,400 a shot, and it means a ton of phone calls and a ton of tedious receptions and shaking hands. And I don't know that he and Mrs. Gingrich were willing to really do this. But this is all this is reporting and people talking on background. Maybe it's sour grapes. Newt's a formidable guy. I mean, I don't think he's going to be the nominee. He may have to withdraw, but I wouldn't underrate his ability to get up there on the stage Monday night and cause some trouble and maybe remind people why at one point he was the leader, after all, of conservatives and Republicans.
Right. Robert Gates obviously stepping down as Secretary of Defense and has been rather candid in the last couple of months. And he gives an interesting comment today about NATO. He says essentially that NATO faces a dim, if not dismal, future. He doesn't have a lot of faith in NATO. Essentially says it's become, a two-tiered organization, and nobody has enough guts or wants to put enough money into, keeping NATO around. And he suggests that NATO may not be around for much longer. What do you make of Gates's comments? And would we be better off without NATO? To be honest with you.
Well, I think we'd be better off if we had European allies who were investing in defense and willing to fight. And I think the Libya thing in that respect is a little bit of a good sign, actually. But even that's only a few countries. Look, if that's true, the world gets a little more dangerous, and we probably have to shoulder more of the burden unless we're willing to say we don't care that whole parts of the world fall apart, which I don't think we're willing to do. But I think it's useful for Bob Gates to go around telling the truth and raising some warning signs. And for me, what it says is we've cut defense. Secretary Gates has tried to cut it in a responsible manner under pressure from President Obama, but I think that's got to stop. I mean, I think we've hit bottom on the cuts. Gates himself said a couple of weeks ago, enough. I mean, it really is amazing. Historians will look at these last 2 years and say, we've bloated up every part of the federal government, and that's stimulus, and with Obama's budgets. Every other cabinet secretary in 2009 was asked by the president, hey, give me some more things to spend money on. And Bob Gates, the Secretary of Defense, when we're fighting two wars, was asked, hey, cut some more money. And I think that's got to stop.
Right. I know you defended the Libya policy that you wanted to enforce a no-fly zone. Where do you think things are right now, and is it still worth our effort in Libya?
Yeah, I think we're going to succeed. I think we've done it in a sort of dithering and too slow and, not terribly, decisive way. But I actually think Gaddafi's losing ground, and I think and I hope, but I really do think, actually, that he could well be gone in a few weeks, and I think that would be a good thing.
And one more question about Afghanistan. What is that? What do you read that decision being based on, and when's it going to come?
Well, I think the decision will come by July 1st. That's what the Obama administration types are saying. I hope it's based on an honest analysis of what's happening on the ground, which I think is a heck of a lot of progress since the surge, and an honest analysis of whether one wants to put all that at risk by making a politically motivated decision to just draw down faster than is prudent now or commit to a 2012 number of troops, which you would do only for domestic political reasons. I really think this is a test to the president, frankly, putting the country before political expediency. I hope he does. I mean, I really hope he does. I think this is something where, with everything we've invested, it would be just idiotic to sort of pull the plug rashly now, and I think we have a pretty good chance of succeeding there.
All right, Bill. Great to have you on the show, as always. We appreciate your time.
Great talking to you. Congratulations on adding Mary Catherine. You guys are carrying her along well.
Doing our best to help her along.
Getting her up at this time of day, you guys have my admiration.
It's actually the other way. She carries us a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Great to talk to you, Bill. Thanks.